Welcome to Magic Arcanum. I'm Ryan Gomez, and I'm so glad you're here because it's our second ever preview time. Wizards of the Coast gave us not one, but two awesome cards to show from the upcoming set War of the Spark, and now you get to see them both. Up first, I hope you have your garlic candy because Sorin is out of the rock. He's going to be one of over 30 planeswalkers to show up in this set. In my last video, I gave Sorin a 0 out of 3 chance of dying in the War of the Spark because I believed he wasn't even going to show up in the fight against Nicol Bolas, but here he is. I'm not changing my odds though. Sorin is one of the most powerful and oldest characters in all of Magic's story, but before we get into his history, let's take a closer look at his new card, Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord. The first thing that jumps out to me is this is a rare. We haven't seen rare planeswalkers since Lorwyn over 10 years ago, and that's because back then, mythic rarity didn't even exist. The other interesting bit to note is that Sorin has what's called a static ability. That means it's always on, or in this case, as long as it's your turn. You don't have to do anything to make it happen like you would with an activated ability. This is the first time we've seen static abilities on planeswalkers, and I'm really excited to see all the different ways that they interact. Sorin has some self-synergy here too, because if you use his +2 ability, he'll do 1 damage, and then you'll also gain life because his static lifelink ability applies to all of your creatures and planeswalkers, including himself. In Magic the Gathering, this type of damage you to heal me attack is flavored as Sangromancy. That's a devastating form of dark magic that drains the life force out of its victims. And I can already tell Sangromancy is going to be this episode's Necromancer. Anyway, we get a closer look at this effect in our second preview card, Sorin's Thirst. This is a reprint from M12, and here it serves as Sorin's signature spell. All of the planeswalkers in War of the Spark are going to have their own signature spell that features them in the art. And oh, look who else is in the art on this one. There's a lot going on here, so let's break it down. Sorin is using his Sangromancy to drain life from Nahiri, another planeswalker. Now this card can only target creatures, but I will give it a flavor pass because in the background, we also get to see Nicol Bolas. Now, Nicol Bolas has brought all of these planeswalkers to Ravnica, but Sorin and Nahiri have their own unfinished business and are currently fighting each other instead of taking sides in the War of the Spark. Sorin might even have some tricks up his sleeve. His minus ability lets you bring back to the battlefield any creature in your own graveyard if you have the loyalty to pay for it. For maximum value, bring back a creature that deals damage when it enters the battlefield. Rakdos Firewheeler, looking at you. You'll gain 4 life, tidy up the board, put a blocker in front of Sorin. Not a bad package. So there you go, 2 cards from War of the Spark, 1 new, 1 reprint, both awesome. But this is Magic Arcanum, where we don't just talk about cool cards, we are here for the stories behind them. If you've stayed with me this far, first of all, thanks. Second, let's answer some of these lingering questions. Questions like, what rock was Sorin stuck in? Who is Nahiri? Why does Nicol Bolas look like he's been bathing in mint chocolate chip ice cream? Some of this was already covered in my previous video, What Are the Eldrazi?, which I encourage you to circle back and check out. Sorin is from Innistrad and is thousands of years old. A long time ago, he worked with Ugin and Nahiri to seal the Eldrazi inside the mountains of Zendikar. After their prison was complete, the trio left Nahiri behind to guard the plane, but Sorin promised to return if the Eldrazi ever escaped. Some time passed, and the Eldrazi eventually did almost get free of their bonds. Nahiri sent a distress call to Sorin, who was back at his home on Innistrad. Now, Sorin would have you believe he never got the call. His own creation, the Hell Vault, along with the magical barriers he put into place to protect and isolate Innistrad, allegedly blocked the incoming call from Nahiri. So, after she got the Eldrazi problem back under control, Nahiri came looking for Sorin and for an explanation. She wasn't too happy to hear that he either ignored the call or had deliberately made himself unreachable, which is effectively the same thing when you've made a promise to answer a very specific type of emergency distress call. This is where Soren starts to push Nahiri's buttons and tells her she's not the boss of him, and all the other stuff you're not supposed to say to a toddler in the middle of throwing a tantrum. As I know from experience. Anyway, the two of them fight, and it ends with Soren sealing Nahiri inside the Hell Vault along with a bunch of other demons and creepy monsters that make themselves at home on Innistrad. Another big chunk of time passes. The Hell Vault gets broken open, Nahiri is released, and she has spent the last, several hundred years holding on to a grudge, the same way I hold on to hope for more episodes of Firefly. Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal, Colossal Dreadmaw! Ah! Ah! You've seen it, right?
I haven't, it's wonderful.
Yeah, all right. So at this point, Nahiri decides to really punish Soren for dodging his responsibilities with the Eldrazi, and she does that by bringing them, right to his doorstep. But first, she goes on a tear and destroys Markov Manor, which was Soren's ancestral home. Man, he really should have answered her call. Between the arrival of Emrakul and Nahiri's warpath, Soren managed to convince some of the other vampires on the plane that they needed to unite against this common enemy. I should pause here and explain Soren is not exactly beloved on Innistrad. A lot of the other vampires dislike him because he created Avacyn, the guardian angel that protects all of the humans on the plane. This made it really, really hard for the vampires to get the blood that they so desperately craved. You could see why they'd be upset. But Soren is pretty wise, despite usually being a self-obsessed jerk. He realized that the vampires would consume all the humans on the plane if left unchecked, and they would starve themselves once they have exhausted their own food supply. Hence, Avacyn was created to maintain the balance. Not a popular move, but effective. At least until she went crazy and started slaughtering all the humans that she was supposed to protect. That's a story for another time. So, Soren struck a truce with Olivia Voldaren and her bloodline, and they all confronted Nahiri. Nahiri is a lithomancer. That means she can control rock and stone, and she used that ability to partially encase Soren inside one of the walls of Markov Manor before she planeswalked away. The pain and pressure of the rocky prison kind of kept Soren contained in there. He couldn't focus long enough to planeswalk away, but he was also able to heal himself fast enough that he wasn't killed, so he was just kind of stuck in perpetual agony. Olivia used this opportunity to crown herself Lord of Innistrad, since he was powerless to do anything about it. This was the last time we saw Soren and Nahiri at the conclusion of Eldritch Moon. And now they're back for War of the Spark. But we are left with so many unanswered questions. How did Soren get out of that rock? What does Nahiri's card do? Sorry, that is my phone. I thought I turned it off. We'll just have to do this one again.
Just want to answer it.
Well, we're almost done. We might as well just finish it. You know, how important is one call?
Who is it, though?
It's not an area code from around here.
Who is it?
It's Canadian.
Oh, hi. This is Kathleen from Loading Ready Run, and I'm looking for, there it is, TCG player. Wanted to see about collaborating on the Soren and Nahiri preview, so give me a call back at youtube.com/loadingreadyrun if you want to see Nahiri's card. Quickly, though, gotta do a thing. Bye!